Hello everyone, welcome to the U.S. Immigration Hub. For years, millions of immigrants in the United States have lived in limbo, raising families, building careers, and contributing to their communities, all while waiting for a clear path to permanent residency. Now, in a year already full of seismic changes to U.S. immigration policy, there's a new proposal on the table that could be truly historic. A new bill being discussed in Congress has the potential to grant green cards to as many as 8 million undocumented immigrants already living in the U.S. But as with any major policy idea, the road from proposal to reality is far from simple. Now, let's get into the video. The proposal, which has been introduced as part of a broader immigration overhaul package, aims to resolve one of the most contentious and emotionally charged issues in U.S. politics: what to do about the millions of undocumented individuals who have lived in the country for years, many of them with U.S. citizen children, deep community ties, and long employment histories. While past attempts to offer legal status to undocumented immigrants have failed due to political deadlock, this new proposal takes a more focused and potentially pragmatic approach. It carves out eligibility for people who have lived in the U.S. for at least 10 years and have maintained a clean record, paid taxes, and demonstrated good moral character. At the heart of this proposal is a recognition that mass deportation is not a realistic or humanly solution. Instead, the bill frames immigration not as a security issue, but as a humanitarian and economic one. The potential pathway to green cards would allow eligible immigrants to apply for lawful, permanent residence, providing them protection from deportation and the ability to legally work, travel, and eventually apply for U.S. citizenship. For families who have been separated or living in fear, this could be life-changing. Children growing up unsure if their parents will be there tomorrow, spouses hiding in the shadows despite years of marriage, and workers exploited because they lack legal status. This bill could change all of that. It's about turning what has been a fragile, uncertain existence into a stable future. But despite its promise, the bill's future is uncertain. The political landscape in 2025 remains deeply divided, and immigration continues to be one of the most polarizing topics in Washington. President Trump and his administration have focused heavily on border security, enforcement, and limiting asylum pathways. In fact, the recent H.R. 1 legislation allocated over $170 billion for enforcement, military border presence, and increased USCIS fees. So, the introduction of a bill with such a generous legalization pathway may appear at first glance to be out of step with current federal priorities. However, immigration advocates argue that it could complement enforcement strategies by offering balance. Instead of treating all undocumented immigrants as a monolith, the bill seeks to distinguish between those with long-standing ties and those crossing the border recently. It's a proposal rooted in the idea that security and compassion don't have to be mutually exclusive. Supporters also point to the economic benefits. Allowing millions of undocumented immigrants to regularize their status could boost the economy through higher tax revenue, increase consumer spending, and improved workplace protections. These immigrants already contribute billions annually in state and federal taxes. Giving them legal status wouldn't just help them, it could also strengthen the economy. It would fill labor shortages and provide a more reliable workforce across key industries. But getting the bill passed is a different story. In a Republican-controlled House, the path forward will require bipartisan support, which may be difficult to build. Some lawmakers are already signaling opposition, arguing that granting green cards to undocumented immigrants amounts to rewarding illegal behavior. Others are calling for stricter enforcement and border control before any discussion of legalization can take place. It's a familiar debate, one that has derailed similar proposals in the past, yet there are signs that the conversation is shifting. Even among some conservative circles, there is growing acknowledgement that the current system isn't working. Business leaders, faith groups, and immigrant communities are pressuring lawmakers to find a practical solution. The hope among advocates is that this bill, with its tighter eligibility requirements and longer residency demands, could gain traction as a middle ground solution. If it passes, the impact would be profound. Millions of undocumented immigrants who've spent years in fear and uncertainty could finally come out of the shadows. They could apply for green cards, access healthcare and education, buy homes, and build futures without fear of deportation. Families would be reunited, employers would benefit, and communities would grow stronger. Of course, we're not there yet. The bill still needs to pass committee review, survive amendments, and win enough votes in both chambers of Congress. There will be debate, negotiation, and likely some compromises. But for now, the very fact that such a bill is being seriously considered in 2025 under a Republican-led government signals that the conversation is changing in ways that may surprise many. For immigrants waiting in silence, watching from the margins, this may be the most hopeful development in years. It's not a promise yet, but it is a possibility. And in immigration, possibility is often the beginning of change. That's all we have for this bulletin. The U.S. Immigration News Channel provides all necessary visa information and procedures for your U.S. immigration journey. It is important to understand the United States immigration processing steps, visa application requirements, processing times, forms, fees, and more. We will continue to provide all information about U.S. visitor visas such as B1 and B2, work visas such as L1A, L1B, and H1B, student visas, green cards, immigrant visas, EB1, EB2, EB3, EB4, and EB5, and family immigrant visas.